So I was in New Jersey about 50 miles away from my house, and my radiator blew. Right under here, you can't really see it. But it was a big gaping hole, way too big to patch or JB weld or fix. So my first option is to drop the car off at a repair shop and hope for the best. But it was like 4 in the afternoon, so I would have had to stay overnight. And I didn't know how much they would charge, and I didn't know where there were any good reliable repair shops, so I decided to skip that. Now option number 2 would have been to get the car towed home, which would have been about 350 bucks, and I didn't want to spend that money. So option 3 would be just buy another radiator and install it in the Quick Check parking lot. So some nice lady gave me a ride to the parts store, but they didn't have the radiator in stock, and neither did any of the other parts stores in the area. Neither did any of the other parts stores in the area. So option 4, my little harebrained scheme, bypass the radiator. Cut the radiator out of the loop because the radiator is what's leaking. Make sure there's coolant in the engine, and that way I can drive 3 or 4 miles at a time, keep my eye on the temperature gauge, and then stop and let the car cool down for half an hour. So that's what I did. I bought these little couplers. They're like radiator hose repair kits. I had to cut the upper hose and kind of redirect it, connect it with the lower hose. I ran into a few kinks, like had to get the battery out of the way so I could get the hose off of the radiator, and the little insert, you can't really see it here, but the little insert that the battery bolts into kind of came loose, so now the battery's just flopping all over everywhere. Then I realized that all these hoses over here had to be plugged. This hose had to be plugged. Luckily I had extra hose clamps and everything. So finally I get the whole thing all buttoned up. I take this hose off and I use this hose to fill the whole system with water. Tighten it up, start the engine, nothing is leaking. I drive 3 miles, the temperature gauge gets to about 3/4. Not overheating, but you know, too hot. So I pull over, I let it cool for about half an hour, and I'm thinking, all right, this is gonna take me till 6 a.m. to get home, but I'll save a $350 tow bill for about, 20 bucks worth of parts. So I drive another 3 miles after the engine cools. At this point, the engine's starting to run really, really badly. I let it cool, I drive another 3 miles, and that's when I realize there must have been a flaw in my logic somewhere. Bypassing the radiator like this, I guess it didn't work, because at this point the car is just running like garbage. There's white smoke bellowing out the tailpipe. So even though I never let the temperature gauge get all the way into the red, or even into the red at all, I guess driving it a little too hot, and the car's got 288,000 miles on it as it is. So I guess either I blew the head gasket, maybe I'll get lucky, it's just an intake manifold gasket, maybe I cracked the head, warped the head, who knows. But luckily for me, there was a tow truck driving by. I waved him over. It only cost me $225 to get the car towed home. And so that, it seems to me that my logic was sound. Like, I'm sure there's some hot rodders in the past who've bypassed a leaky radiator and just driven slowly home, but maybe it only works on old cars, maybe it only works in the winter, maybe it doesn't work at all. I'm not entirely sure what I missed, but I would call this an epic fail. I think I should have just had the car towed home, paid the $350, because I could have slapped a radiator in it and been on the road the next day. As it is, I've been waiting for days for my radiator to finally show up, which it has, and I'm going to document the installation of that. But that is the story of the epic fail of my little harebrained scheme to bypass my radiator. So if you concoct an idea like that yourself, be forewarned, it may not work, and you may be in for a lot more problems when you finally get home. Good luck out there.